market size and market share is not like telling time. You just can't look at the clock and get a precise answer. What you've got to do is hope that you can get in the general ballpark. Doesn't matter how much time and money you spend, it's always going to be imprecise. You're just trying to get in the ballpark. For initial commercialization purposes, we're trying to figure out what the general order of magnitude of sales might be, both for the market overall and for our market share. As we move downstream, we can try and be more accurate and sort of refine it down into, are we in the, 1 million or 1.5 million or 1.25 million range. But we're never going to get it as precise as watching that clock click and say, yep, now it's 11:02. Actually, there's a metaphor here using a digital clock, because we don't really have the sweep of the second hand, the continuous movement. It treats time as if it were discontinuous and ignores sort of these the reality of our experience, which is we don't experience time as discontinuous. It doesn't seem like boop, boop. It's just, we're aware of things moving along. And it's sort of like that in market research. We just have to accept that we're not going to get an entirely accurate picture. Now, how are we going to get a rough approximation? Well, when all else fails, here's my trick. My first trick is I take a look at what phase the market is. Is it an embryonic market, a growth market, a shakeout market, a mature market, or a dying market? I determine that by looking at the relationship to the dominant design. Has the dominant design emerged or not? And then I look at how many people are rushing in and out of that marketplace, who's selling what. I can look at historical benchmarks to get an idea. For example, if I'm looking at adoption of a new type of fish for farm fish like an Arctic char, I can take a benchmark from the last major fish that came in, like a tilapia. If I'm looking for a new type of light bulb, I can look at the fluorescent light bulb and its market penetration rates and get some ideas and adjust from that historical experience. The rule of thumb, as I think I've said before, is you can go forward as many periods as you have data going back and making projections. The other thing that I want to look at is I want to look at the kind, so that gives me the first thing, the relationship to the dominant design. I should have said that the relationship to the dominant design is also related to the type of people who are buying. So I can sort of, if I know what's going on, I can say, okay, my technology, if this marketplace is in a very early embryonic phase, I'm probably only playing for about 3% of the total potential people in this market. Later on, when it's in growth, I'm playing for maybe what, another 15, 20%. As it starts to get more mature, another 35% come in as we start to hit shakeout. It's going to, I'm heading in towards and into maturity. By maturity, I've got sort of my late majority in there. There's another 35% coming in, and so on and so forth. The other thing I use is, if I know what the dominant design is, I can look at how my innovation relates to the dominant design. Remember, we said if it uses the same basic technology approach, same basic underlying technologies, and what it provides, the performance is measured on the same kind of metrics that current technology is, it's probably incremental. Well, if it's incremental, there's no reason for anybody new to come into the marketplace. You're just fighting over market share that's already there. On the other hand, if it's adaptive or radical, it is possible that more people will come into the market, so the total addressable market may be larger than the current market. However, I'll have a bit of an education problem or an awareness building problem because something's different, and I have to reach out and attract those new buyers to get them into the market. If it's radical, think about the computer. The computer came in as a replacement for the calculator and to some extent the word processor, but then it went on to do all sorts of weird different things like desktop publishing, the internet, and so on. So over time, radical innovations may, notice I said may, open up new types of applications, new areas they can be sold into. They tend to have larger technology niches or expanding technology niches, where adaptive ones tend to be trapped in the niche of the original product that they're adapting. Anyways, the most hard to predict are, so in the case of radical, we could have a lot of new customers coming in. The hardest to predict are the disruptive ones. The best way to look at a disruptive technology is to figure out where's the little tiny niche where it can get a toehold. It's like the Gutenberg Bible. It came in, it was a disruptive technology according to some people. It really is a radical technology. It's a different technology basis, but measured on the same metrics. What were the metrics? I want to read the Bible. What's the technology, other technology metric? Well, I don't want to have to spend a lot of time copying it. So it came in for priests because they didn't want to copy the Latin Bible by hand. Later on it expanded because they started printing the Bible in German. As people read more, it went side by side. So it was disruptive in that sense. But so it's very hard to predict market size for disruptives, but you can at least predict the initial entry market by looking at the tiny markets where it's more radical than truly disruptive. So that's how we get a handle on where the total market sizes are. If we're looking at our market share, we have to think about the relative power that we have versus the power of other vendors in the marketplace. Good way to sort of begin to think about that is go to the web and look up Porter's 5 Forces, P-O-R-T-E-R, Porter's 5 Forces. If that sounds familiar, well, a little while ago we were talking about Porter's value chain. This is Michael Porter. He's a smart man, did a lot of interesting sort of things that are good jumping off points for thinking about marketing. If I look at my power in the marketplace relative to other people, then I can sort of get a handle on how much market share I can grab. What's the quick and dirty trick there? Well, the quick and dirty trick is simply this. You call a bunch of experts and end users. If they're like, woo, that's really great, that's wonderful, you're going to get a larger market share than if they're like, oh, well, big yawn, where you're not going to get very much at all. Once you have a rough idea of what the market size and market share might be, start calling people again and say, hey, I think it's like this for these reasons. What do you think? And if you call a couple of experts, now you're trading information back and forth. They're likely to talk to you. Now you get a better handle on what other people think about your market size and share, and they'll help you refine it down because you can use their advice and their input to start averaging against what you found, and it'll hopefully hone you in a little better. You can do more formal methods like expert panels and Delphi procedures that we've talked about before, but usually for an initial first approximation, that's not worthwhile enough. All you're doing is licensing out. You don't want to spend a lot of time getting the very most precise estimates that you can get, because the reality is the people you're licensing to will know more than you ever will because they're going to sell the thing. So really what you're trying to do is just get into the general ballpark, and that's relatively straightforward, as we said. One final thing, there's two ways to do these estimates, top down or bottom up. Top down means I start with some humongous figure like, here's the market for vaccines. And then I say, okay, I want to know vaccines that are made with killed viruses. So I talk to a bunch of experts and I say, what percentage of the vaccine market do you think is made that way? And they'll give me their best guess. I say, do you think it's 10, 20%? What would you guess? And we sort of work on that basis. So I'm honing down from a very large scale estimate. Bottom up, if I want to know how many boilers there are, or hot water heaters, let's say, in homes in America, I figure out how many homes there are. I assume there's one hot water heater per home, and I multiply. So I can go bottom up by saying, here's the base thing I'm basing it on, here's the platform, there's this many systems in a platform, there's this many components in a system, and I have a part that goes into each component, or I put 3 parts in each component, and I can multiply it out, get a rough idea that way, and then I can bounce that off of a bunch of experts and see if they think I'm in the ballpark or not. So that's the handy-dandy, quickie 5-minute tutorial on market size and market share. When we come back, we're going to leave markets aside, and we're going to go on to the next topic. Talk to you then.